Morgan, are you sure about this plan? Ekta said, as she pulled the weighted armor around the human. She cinched it down tight, making the old leather creak. Not really, Morgan said, but I don't know that I have a lot of options. You fight Gladiator Arandi tonight, Ekta said. He is one of the most dangerous fighters in the pit. I know, Morgan said. I saw him fight 2 weeks ago, pulled the head clean off of a Lurlian, and that was after a solid 20 minutes of beating its ass. It was a mercy when he finally killed it. Arandi likes to play with his victims. Ekta checked the laces on Morgan's arms. Arandi was censured by the commissioner a little over a year ago, so he may be on good behavior. Censured? What for? I thought the pit was a no-holds-barred fight-to-the-death arena, Morgan said. That's how the old guys explained it to me when the promoters snatched me up. Ekta busied herself checking Morgan's armored costume as she spoke. It is, usually. But even among the brutal and depraved, there are limits, such as eating your opponents. Arandi would kill everyone who was sent against him, then would dine on their carcasses. The commission sent in troops with stun batons, but they only had a 30% survival rate, so that didn't last long. Eventually, the commission had to formally censure him, kept him locked in solitary for 3 months on barely subsistence rations. He lost most of his muscle mass and developed an even worse temper. The day of his release, they threw him into 4 hours of back-to-back matches. He won, but only barely. And he didn't eat anyone. Well, that's horrific, Morgan said. Yes, he pretty much has his strength back now, Ekta said. She had double-checked all the bindings and straps. She had made sure vital organs were as well covered as possible. She brushed an imaginary speck of dust from his shoulders. She could not look him in the eye. Did you talk to your friend in environmental control? Morgan asked. I did, Ekta said. He was confused why I was asking for this favor, but he understands what he needs to do. Good, Morgan said. And the guards know not to rush the arena? You will have no safety net or protocols, Ekta said. She found her eyes stinging from the tears she was fighting. You will be on your own, facing the most violent beast I've ever seen. Arandi and the commission are from a warrior society, Morgan said. Honor, solemnity, grim determination, dying in glorious battle. That's their world. That's all they know. But I'm from West Virginia and I know other things. Now, hand me that charcoal. An hour later, he stood behind the great steel doors. He realized only briefly that he thought of the doors as steel, but had no idea what they were actually made of. Space steel? Orbital aluminum? Galactic pudding? Well, no time for door investigation now. He could hear the dull roar of the crowd on the other side of the doors and was waiting for the signal. He heard the thunder when Arandi entered, one of the reigning champions. The crowd loved him. They would be hungry for Morgan's death. He had stood behind the doors 4 times previous and had been the one to walk back through them each time. This time, he wondered if he would be carried. The darkness of the hall split open as the doors pulled apart. This was his cue. He would bring the rituals of his home world to these aliens that had stolen him and forced him to fight to the death. The doors spread apart, and Morgan took a deep breath, calling on the spirits of those who would aid him. Savage and flare, rock and stone. Strut, he thought, as he took his first step into the massive dirt-floored arena. I need to strut, not just walk. He felt the angry energy of the crowd and fed off it. He turned their boos and hisses into food for his soul. He smiled as they jeered at him and called for his head in 1,000 alien tongues. He could only see portions of the arena as a dozen plinths and columns of varying heights and designs dotted the field. Some were smooth and unbroken, while others were cracked and deformed. Heights ranged from only a meter or two up to several meters. The lights in the arena spun crazily, some stuttering on and off, others pointing in random directions. Ekta's friend in environmental controls had come through. The colors on a few of the beams changed as they moved. Morgan caught a small black rod, the microphone supposedly, from an unnamed worked near the giant doors. He felt more than heard the doors roll shut. He threw his arms out to his side and basked in the hatred of the audience. Whoa! Morgan shouted into the microphone, the shrill screech rebounding off the far walls. I have never seen a more disgusting group of pig fuckers in my life, and that's a damn fact! His costume was a riot of clashing and conflicting colors, an assault on the entire electromagnetic spectrum, and possibly a minor war crime in the more civilized societies. His face had a long, jagged lightning bolt drawn in black, reaching from his hairline to his throat, covering the better part of the left-hand side of his face. He marched into the center of the arena. Arandi stood there, barely contained rage in his eyes, massive muscled legs and arms like pistons threatening to break the skin that held them. Morgan wondered if Arandi was even sapient. This place smells like the ass end of nowhere, and from the looks of you people, that's exactly where you'd feel most at home. Ah ha 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 ha! Morgan hammed it up. He found this was starting to feel more natural, and that he was finding his groove. But I'd like to ask my esteemed opponent, Randy, just what the hell he thinks he's gonna do in here tonight, Morgan asked. He looked to the monster-out opponent who glared at him with clear and unbridled hate. Arandi said, I shall It doesn't matter what you think, Morgan bellowed into the microphone, his voice making their speakers squeal. I am the most electrifying gladiator in this arena of all time! Arandi began rocking back and forth on the balls of his feet, his claws digging into the soft dirt. Morgan kept an eye on him as he spoke. It wouldn't be long until the beast was loose. They would normally await the commissioner's leave to begin, but Morgan wanted something different. Holy shit, Morgan said as he spun to take in the audience in the stands. If this no-account, boring, lazy jabroni is the best you space assholes have to offer, I'm surprised you haven't given up fighting for something more entertaining and honorable, like watching old people die slowly. The boos were shaking dust from the columns. Arandi was near to his breaking point, if Morgan was any judge. One more should do it. Hell, the only thing scary about this little bitch, Morgan said, hooking a thumb towards Arandi, is that he's kinda got those pedophile eyes. I'm a little worried he thinks I'm in high school and might try to run up my ass. He heard the roar behind him before the audience could even react. Without hesitating, Morgan dropped to his left and rolled as Arandi passed less than a handbreadth overhead. Arandi overshot and came to a dragging halt several steps away. Morgan shot to his feet and flipped Arandi the bird. There's no way he knows what this means, Morgan thought, but he should get the general idea. Arandi howled and launched himself at Morgan. Damn, he's fast, Morgan thought. He slipped aside, behind a large column, just ahead of being caught by his opponent. Having a split second in which to decide, Morgan grabbed the microphone in his teeth and pulled himself up the column. He felt lucky that he'd picked one that had some kind of handholds. Arandi screamed as he rounded the corner only to find Morgan missing. He sat back on his haunches and snarled at his prey as it climbed out of reach. Arandi jumped up and made a swipe at Morgan's trailing foot, catching nothing but air. Knowing the layout of the arena better than his own room, Arandi darted to the right and leapt atop a small plinth. Scrambling to keep his footing on the solid and unbroken surface, Arandi watched as Morgan crested the larger column. Morgan could see the hate and shame growing on Arandi's face. Morgan realized at that moment that he could not stay up there forever. He would eventually need to come down and face the beast. Arandi looked to his left and right. Seeing a column only slightly higher than his own, Arandi chanced a jump. He launched with all the force his powerful legs could muster and soared through the choked arena air for a long moment. Arandi's chest hit the top of the plinth. The jump had been too long. Morgan watched Arandi claw for purchase. He felt hope for a moment that his opponent would fall to the ground below, but his hopes disintegrated as the monster managed to work the bulk of its body over the edge and on top of the column. There was a period of sorting himself out by Arandi once he was safety atop the plinth. Morgan saw it the same time Arandi did. The first jump, the one Arandi had just negotiated, was the hardest. There was a path of no more than 3 more jumps that would bring Arandi to the top of Morgan's column. Morgan thought of climbing down, but then what? On the ground, Arandi was 10 times faster than Morgan would ever be. Morgan would tire first, most likely, and fall to Arandi's claws. Arandi wasted no time and spared not a moment for hesitation. He jumped from column to column in no time at all. As he prepared for the final leap, Morgan could see a cold hunger overtake the burning hatred. This was worse. This was staring death itself in the face. Morgan noticed that Arandi's claws were a detriment on the columns. They were too slick and solid for the claws to dig in and get purchase. Morgan turned the tables. He charged at Arandi, still on the other column, and flew at him full force. Morgan hit Arandi broadside, and they spun for a moment before the column beneath them disappeared, and Morgan felt his feet on nothing but air. Arandi had been too stunned to react. Shock of seeing his prey turn on him and charge had taken away his faculties. As he felt his feet swing free, his body reacted without thinking, twisting and turning in midair. Morgan felt bones and muscles and sinew beneath Arandi's skin as they fell. But he also felt a small, squishy spot. He imagined it was a solar plexus, but realized he had no idea if that concept even applied to a beast such as Arandi. In the twisting and spinning through the air as they fell, Morgan found himself on top as the ground rushed up to meet them. He dug his elbow into the imagined solar plexus and forced all his body weight onto it. Several hours later, Morgan awoke with Ekta standing over him, mopping his brow with a cool, damp cloth. Many parts of his body screamed in agony, and he dared not move. "What happened?" Morgan managed to get out. "You won," Ekta said. "How?" "When you landed on Arandi, your elbow was forced into his organs," Ekta said. "It ruptured several vital organs. Arandi bled to death on the arena floor, mostly internal bleeding. How do you feel?" "Just awful," Morgan said. "Everything hurts." "How did you come to that strategy?" Ekta asked. "Well," Morgan said, "in 1998, the Undertaker threw mankind off hell in a cell and plummeted 16 feet through an announcer's table.